What is going on, everybody? Bobby Five with Brandon Cruz and Eric Sheets-Haber, who's just entering the chat right on time. But the people have spoken. They wanted Brandon to do some showdown stuff, so we're going to be doing Thursday showdowns, and then whenever he can pop in for any other ones, I'm sure he'll try to join us. I guess I'll start off with you, Brandon, because I'm used to doing this with just one person. But what are you looking at tonight? Because we were just joking. I was joking with you pre-show, and we were talking about how usually you can commit to, you're comfortable just committing to someone 100% of the captain. This is not one of those kind of slates. There's a lot of ways it could go. It's should be a low scoring game. We'll see what actually ends up happening. But what do you think on slates like this that are, I know you don't like it, but I'm curious what your takes are.
I think this slate is all about identifying who isn't going to completely ruin your lineup from a point per dollar play. And for me, I struggle on low scoring slates because of that. I've never been able to build well enough for that. And so for this slate, I'm trying to identify either the people who have upside who aren't going to be played and or who can score pretty similar to their more expensive counterparts. For example, I'm really interested in Mike Williams today over Garrett Wilson. That's probably one of my earliest takes or feels in this. I feel like I want to play Mike Williams in any way I can, try and get to him, because I think he's going to be involved more. He's 6,200, and I think he's going to score similar to a lot of the more expensive guys. I'm really worried about Stevenson being shut down by the Jets defense, and Brissett having to throw a lot in this game. So I'm really concerned about Stevenson paying off his price tag. I'm really concerned about Wilson paying off his price tag at 10-2. So just entering the slate, I'm more interested in the 6 and 5K guys, especially the kickers as well. And that's kind of where I'm at just right off the bat.
Yeah, and just I agree about certain parts of that. The only thing I'm worried about with Williams is a Thursday after a Sunday after he played a lot more on Sunday, but he's coming back still from an injury. So that was my sort of inclination too. I think it could still be a Lazard night as well, but I do have those guys. Actually, have those guys captained a little bit more than I probably need to. It's also a good slate. I think you could leave more money on the table than usual for this kind of a slate. Like you mentioned, it's going to be hard for a lot of these guys to hit their prices, and there's no reason why Antonio Gibson today couldn't outscore Ramondre Stevenson. He's 3,600 versus 11-4. So that I think is interesting. Sheet, you got any overall takes before we start talking about some captains and whatnot?
Yeah, I do. So I very rarely, come in with actual takes. So I don't know what Brandon's talking about, but let me tell you what I was going to share. I really like Mike Williams today.
Oh, there you go.
I think Mike Williams is a tremendous play. I think that he came back from the injury. He had just a couple of snaps, and his snap share was increased. And it's just the perfect time to just get after it. And so I am actually forcing in more Mike Williams than I would have gotten otherwise. And I'm completely in agreement with and Brandon and I have spoken about showdown football, a grand total of 0 minutes lifetime, and about 0 minutes before this slate, about 0 minutes seconds worth of discussion before this slate also. So that was the exact first play that I was going to talk about was Mike Williams. I think it's a very, very strong play.
Dude, that's all I need to hear. I'm done. Okay, now.
I'll see you. All right. I have a couple of others though. Okay. For the New England side, I think that people are definitely going to play the guy that scored the touchdown last week. The guy with the apostrophe, Hall, is it? Who's the? Yeah.
Oh no, the Braylon, the young guy, the youngest guy in the NFL, the Braylon.
No. He's on the Jets. The Patriot guy.
Oh, sorry.
Hold on. He scored the touchdown last week, and he's going to get love this week. And it is Jay Polk. Okay, that is his name.
Oh, right.
I like Demario Douglas today. He was a big part of their offense last year, and there's a little bit of coach speak. There's a little bit of whining by Demario Douglas that's in the air. There was a couple of articles that he was yelling that he wants the ball and all this stuff, and sounds good to me. So I like that. And I also like the for the Patriots the Hunter Henry for New England as well. He's expensive, I think, but fine. So I like those guys. Those are my two like player takes. The other thing is that I really don't have too much, if anything, that's like super cheap. You know, like the Tyquan Thornton. You know,
Right.
that's kind of, I don't want to say obvious, but that's, you know, kind of like your obvious type of punt, and the Jeremy Rucker. I mean, he's going to get in there or whatever. But I don't have any like any super hoodoos. You know what I mean? And that's just the way that, like, Rucker's 800, but I mean, people are going to play him. I mean, I imagine people are going to play him. But I've really nobody below that.
Yeah, I don't think that you need anybody. For whatever reason, it was really, and I understand it's tough for Breece Hall, but I'm going to eat a little bit of the Breece Hall thing. But I like both of you guys. Before I was a little worried. I'm a little worried about the Williams Sunday to Thursday after the injury. But on the flip side, at the ownership that he's at, I think it's a tremendous play. But I also think that in a funny way, like, you're going to get some low-owned Lazard stuff on both sides too, like both in the flex and captain. And I think those are very viable to go as well. I'm a little spread out at captain today, but I really like the idea of getting some Williams, some Lazard. And in my biggest buy-in right now, my captain and my biggest buy-in is Antonio Gibson right now. Now, do I need to do that on this slate? Probably not. But is there plenty of passing downs he can get the work in? And is it maybe it's twice as likely, maybe 3 times at the very most, for Ramondre Stevenson to score versus him? He's 3,600. You can get everything in. Like, my biggest build has, I'll just say, I have Gibson captain and I have the Jets defense. So you could probably figure out a good bit of what the rest is, but I don't think that's going to be very high owned at all. I really like the both backup running backs today. Again, these Thursday slates, that's what often happens as the season goes on. You get more carries and more touches for your backup running backs than your starting guy, because you don't want to destroy them that early in the season, especially if they're good running backs. And both these teams, their best offensive players, at least in my opinion, are their running backs. So I would see that the backup running backs getting a little bit more work today. And that's the way I'm going to approach this slate. That's my sort of, not big take, but one of my big takes. And I mentioned I was spread out at captain. I'm just looking through some of my lineups, but I've got, Williams. I've got Williams in a few. I've got I'm playing 30 in that the $15, but Williams is in, I think, 2 of them as captain, but he's in like 30% of my overall lineups. And I like the Lazard. I've got Lazard in 2 of them as well, and Lazard's in about 40% of my lineups. So I guess the other big question that people are running into tonight is, how much, like, I actually think the Jets defense, I thought it was going to be a lot higher owned than it's projected to be. My guess is in higher buy-ins, it's actually going to be higher than what it's being projected at 2.9%. I actually think this is the kind of slate where playing both defenses is more than viable. The defenses actually could be the ones who score the touchdowns. Like, we don't even know. The defenses, the kickers, and I tried to build like that, and you end up leaving like 12K on the table, which I actually think on this slate works, because I'm not especially interested in either quarterback. If I was, I prefer Brissett over Rodgers, just personally. I think that he's going to have to throw the ball more than likely than Jets will, at least based on the odds. So I think it's a very interesting slate to maybe spread out a little bit, depending on how many lineups you're going with. I'm going to jump over and ask about, Sheets. And did you get to many kickers in your builds?
Yeah. So since you brought up the defenses or whatever, I think that I think the Jets defense is going to be popular. I know maybe it's not projected as such or whatever, but I think it will be. I actually like the if you're going to play that way, I think I prefer to just play the Patriots defense.
Sure.
They're going to be definitely much lower owned. And listen, the other thing about playing too much of the Jets defense is, remember, when you play the defense, you're not really playing the defense because they're going to hold the team to very few points. Okay. Right. You're playing the defense because there's going to be a lot of activity that's going to create fumbles and interceptions and sack fumbles and strips and stuff like that. I mean, to get to the optimal, that's really what you need. I just got this feeling that Patriots are just going to try to pound the rock. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure that the Jets are missing their best pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates a little less variance as far as the defense goes. A little, slightly less opportunities for sacks, slightly less pressure. And I think if the Patriots were smart, I mean, they played 2 smart games so far. They got 1 win, 1 loss, right? And they're not gonna let, if they can avoid it, they're not gonna hopefully not let Jacoby Brissett have to run around like a freaking mad person, whatever. So I just don't want the Jets defense to go in too owned for my liking.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and the Patriots defense will be the lower owned side. For what it's worth, these defenses are both top 10 in football, without a doubt. I have absolutely no reason to believe in this Jets offense from anything I've seen yet. And this might be a night where they could show off a little bit or do something. They've looked horrible. I thought they got very fortunate to win last week. I don't think there's anything about Aaron Rodgers that looks like a top 15, much less top 20 quarterback in football. I do think Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are extremely talented. And I am not going to just go in and buy this whole Jets nonsense that everybody's been talking about all year. Their defense is awesome. They've got 2 awesome offensive players. They've got Aaron Rodgers, who's probably going to get hurt this season. And even before that happens, he has not shown himself to be anything better than basically an average quarterback so far. And I would go further. Going back to his last year in Green Bay, he was basically an average starting quarterback that year. That's the truth. I know everybody loves Rodgers. They love to say how great he was. And I think you should tell everybody he was the greatest. I argued him against Tom Brady for a lot of my life. And then Brady just kept winning too much. But this is not the same guy. And I don't think he can stay clean against this defense. So I'm lower on that. I don't have none of it, but I'm a little lower on the Rodgers pass.
Hey, Brandon, what kind of hoodoos do you like here? I mean, like any fun plays here?
So
Williams is a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, I like Williams. I don't know exactly how to build this, but I'm really interested in no quarterbacks tonight. Yeah. And I don't know if that would necessarily mean both defenses, because I don't really want to play the defense in this game. I think both teams are very selective in not letting the other teams get the sack. Or I don't think there's going to be a lot of turnovers in this game either. But I don't feel like Rodgers makes sense at 10,000. I mean, Jacoby's 9,000, but he's not going to be throwing a lot. He's not going to be. I don't see him throwing more than 1 touchdown here. And so part of me feels like you could get away with no quarterbacks tonight and still playing actual players and not just relying off of kickers and defenses. But I'm not exactly sure how I would build that way. I would for sure not play 2 quarterbacks in this game. But right now, I feel like playing a 5-1 jet stack, with Williams and the captain, for example, because I think Breece Hall is the best play on the slate. I think he's easily going to score over 18 points. I think he's going to be optimal. Mm-hmm. And the real debate is how far ahead he's going to score compared to other people. There's a real chance Breece Hall is the captain in this slate just by raw points alone. So Breece Hall is probably the guy I feel the most confident in, and due to the fact that Rodgers is also throwing to him as well. But man, I really don't have any takes past that today. This is a really tough slate for me.
Well, I think that, but you're sort of saying the 5, and those are takes. But I also want to just point out that I really think that you should expand to people should expand all the way, at least leaving 10K on the table in some lineups. I really believe that. I really could see the optimal being a 37,000 kind of a lineup tonight. I'm not saying it's going to happen tonight specifically. We saw it a bunch last year, especially on Thursday games. So I really think you should expand, because it's trying to force in all these offensive players. And D Pope was mentioning here in the chat, Joey Sly, Joey Sly gets 2 field goals and an extra point. That's going to be 8 fantasy points. How many offensive players do we actually expect to get more than 8 fantasy points tonight? Is there 5? I don't know if there is. Can you play Joey Sly and just Garrett Wilson may not even get there? You don't agree, Sheets?
Well, I mean, the more. Well, I wish this game would lock already, because I'm thinking of doing something just stupid. So every just kind of reasonable analysis, and I've talked about this before. Any reasonable analysis of this game says it's going to be low scoring with the freaking Jets defense and all this stuff and life is not so easy. The total is what, 38? Is that what it is? I'm
38 and a half.
38 and a half. And I've talked about this before. People are playing the slate like it's going to be 31. Okay, and that's fine. But why is no one playing the slate like it could be 45? I mean, it's just.
I actually think because the way the sims work and everything, they're forcing these players in. Because I ran a bunch of this stuff, and it was forcing in, other than Breece Hall, who really wanted me to fade, it was forcing in all the offensive guys, and I didn't think it was actually enough of the kickers and defenses. Because I do think the kickers and defenses might very well end up being right there behind Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson or Ramondre or somebody like that as the second, third, fourth, or whatever, third through sixth of highest scoring players. I could see that happening tonight. So I don't know that they're playing it like it's lower, but I love that thought process you have, because you always point this out. And also everybody wants to play it like the Jets are going to win this game so easily and so handily. Let's see something first.
It's only a 6-point spread or whatever it is.
6.5.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty big in the NFL. People treat 6.5 point spreads like they're 12.5. You know what I mean? Like the Jets are still, they're 3-1 favorites almost. Minus 275.
Do you like Conklin at all?
I think there's got to be a week where he gets there, but I don't know if this is going to be it. He doesn't. It's weird though, because we're going to such a small sample size. Like if this was opening night, he would have been insanely popular. He actually ran more routes, but he hasn't had the target share that the other tight end has gotten, Rucker. So I have a little bit of him, and originally he was my highest buy-in. At his price, I think you can do whatever you want to with it, but I got rid of it, and I ended up using the Jets defense in my biggest buy-in instead, and mixing some things around.
And Conklin's probably the cheapest guy I'll be using today.
I think that's fair.
So after basically a week and a half of me doing my I'm going to do the same thing I do with NBA and do 20 line, like that was just a disaster. So I'm just back to single entry stuff now.
Yeah.
And it's already worked out tremendously there. So like I'm probably gonna have Conklin in my line today. Like I mainly prioritize like all the $15 contests, like all the the 3 bubble screens and stuff. That's mainly what I build for. And I think Conklin is probably going to be in that lineup just because he's probably going to score like at least 4 points, probably like 4.5 or something. And if like what I'm looking at is trying to have Hall, I already like Williams. I'm debating on not if I want Rodgers or Garrett Wilson. Like I don't think you necessarily need Rodgers with the pass catchers today.
Totally
like that's kind of like my 1v1 that I'm trying to decide right now. But I'm probably going to rock a 5-1 Jets stack.
How's that going to work though, guys? How is he going to get there without you think he's going to run? How's he
they don't score enough points for. I mean, you could throw 2 touchdowns and have 12 fantasy points, and if your receiver catches one of the touchdowns and 3 other passes, then he's already smoked you.
So last when did Mason?
I don't think the quarterbacks have won yet on a showdown slate.
Yeah.
Like
So
maybe once.
when did Mason play? It was like last Monday, right?
Yeah.
So I gave up probably like a $6,000 win because I had Brock Purdy instead of Debo in the lineup. And if I didn't have, like, whenever I look at builds like that, now granted that that was a value captain who went off and stuff, but the ceiling was way higher on Debo, and I played way too close to the chest by playing Purdy. I think this is a situation where like Wilson and Rodgers' projections are so similar, and if Rodgers only throws like 1 touchdown or throws in the range of not surpassing like 230 yards, like I think Wilson can outscore him in raw points. And
I thought you guys were saying the opposite. I thought you wanted to be able to play. I thought you want to play Rodgers without the receivers.
Oh
No.
I was wondering how that's going to get there.
Oh no. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was putting out the opposite thing too as well. Yeah, I mean, like the first week, the highest scoring player was at Lazard, and Rodgers, I think, was the 11th highest scoring player or something. He had like 9 fantasy points.
Right.
The first week in San Francisco. I guess it wasn't last Monday. No, it was a week ago Monday. Yeah.
You like I'll throw a couple of names out there. KJ Osborne, Austin Hooper, Xavier Gibson. Now Gibson would have been the guy if what's his name, if Mike Williams wasn't getting his snap share back, I think. But he is only 2K, Gibson. So you could even, I don't know. I mean, in non Mike Williams lineups, maybe you throw Gibson in there. What about Hooper? Can he do enough? I mean, you don't really need to do too much.
Well, that's the thing, is that you don't need to do too much, and you really don't need the savings. So I didn't get to Hooper, but I'd like, so the flip side of the Mike Williams narrative thing would be, okay, playing Gibson, assuming that, like, to take my original argument that, hey, and even though I'm playing him because the ownership is low enough, but what if they do limit him tonight a little bit, just because you're coming off of a major injury to play a Sunday, Thursday game that you should theoretically win? Wouldn't that be a time to maybe give Gibson more reps? So I actually think Gibson's of those names the most appealing for me personally. But I just don't think you need to go that low. There's just other guys that I like better, including both defenses. So I would not be surprised if either or both defense scored a touchdown tonight. I really wouldn't. I think this is one of the rare times you just leave the cheap guys alone. The one guy that's weird though, he's cheap, and I feel like if he was 3K, I actually would have gotten to him more. Would be Rucker, the other tight end for the Jets. He seems to have a little bit of a rapport with. There's buzz around them. They always say that there's buzz in the building around his him being in sync with Rodgers. Maybe that's the guy who scores the touchdown tonight. And honestly, there's no reason why Conklin should be more expensive than him. But if you want to just leave the extra money on the table and play Ruckert instead of Conklin, I think that's completely viable. Samuel's asking, is it a bad take to fade the chalk as captain, Hall, Wilson, Stevenson? I'm going to let you go first on that one, Brandon.
I wouldn't play Stevenson. Typically, I try to always, like, now, granted, this is coming off of a situation to where I probably should have, like, I don't even remember who played on Sunday night or whatever. But typically, I would always only do pass catchers in the captain just because they have way higher ceilings. And when you're giving that up, I played Mixon in the captain the other day. Like Mixon, Breece Hall, McCaffrey, like these are the types of players that you would at least kind of like encroach on playing in the captains. But like Stevenson, I just don't think he's going to be viable in the captain day because I think New England's going to primarily use him versus throwing to people, and I think the Jets are probably going to hold him back to at least like 85 yards and maybe not a touchdown. Like I think Stevenson probably ends with like 9 to 11 points, and I think if you're prioritizing him in the captain there, you're giving up just like way too much salary. Like I think it's Hall or a pass catcher from the Jets today. And I think it really comes down to Hall or Mike Williams in the captain today. Hall, if you're wanting to slam nearly all the high projected guys in, then you punt with like Conklin or Rutger as your like bottom, or you go like Williams captain, and then you can still have Hall, Rodgers. Like I said, I mean, I'm looking at it as like a 5-1 type of build. Like those are the only two viable guys that I would be looking at today.
Well, one of the guys that Bobby mentioned earlier when I was asking about the New England guy was the backup running back for the Jets, Allen. He got a lot of run. They really like him.
The youngest player in the league.
I'm not saying it's like a split share or anything like that, but I would not. I mean, I'm getting to him in some lineups. I don't know. Again, I kind of let the Sims run what they run. But if you get like double running backs for the Jets, I have no problem with that. And even for New England, so you like the Gibson, just kind of like the game script thing, right? Like if they have to throw, Gibson will be the guy to get that.
I think he's very likely to be, and I think that his low ownership is what's appealing to me. If you play just the numbers of what they're going to have to do tonight, I think that Gibson. It's not that Stevenson can't get involved in the passing game; he totally can. But Gibson has always been talented. He played the backup running back, but sort of the pass catching back role in Washington last year. I think that he showed some bursts last week that made me feel a little better about him. So I thought he was a good way to get contrarian. I think the most obvious way to get contrarian, and it shouldn't be contrarian in my opinion. I actually thought I might have to change my main lineup here because I don't know why Hunter Henry is going overlooked as a captain here. I think the price, it looks high, so it shocks people. But Hunter Henry was like, he nearly broke the main slate last week if he just caught that other ball. What did he end up with? Let me just take a look here. He's first of all, he averages the most fantasy points behind other than Stevenson on their team. He had 8 catches for 109 yards last week and 22 fantasy points against Seattle. I don't know why he would be sub 2% in the captain, but I kind of think that's where I'm probably going to end up going.
I mean, I know this I don't know if this is still a thing, but I mean, again, talking through game scripts and stuff, I mean, seems to make sense that if you're playing a team that has, that's going to pressure you defensively, that you probably look for the tight end,
Yep.
You do it or swing the guys out of the backfield, So that's why I wouldn't. Well, I mean, Brandon, you're only playing one lineup or whatever, so it's not particularly relevant. But I think there are just plenty of variations where like Ramondre Stevenson gets 30 today. Just on volume and just what, like if New England executes a game plan, he's going to get 30. Like at all. And even if they don't execute a game plan and they're behind, he might get stuff out of the backfield. He's the man there. You know what I mean? So if you play one lineup, I'm with you. I would say play something like a Jets guy who's not Breece Hall and not Aaron Rodgers in the captain. So if you like Mike Williams, great. If you like Garrett Wilson, great. I think either of those is fine. But I wouldn't like. And you can be tempted to do this. Like, let's say you played 50 lineups. You get like in your head, you're like, oh, the Jets are just gonna crush them. They're gonna put it on them. And hell, why am I playing Ramondre Stevenson the captain? So they start screwing around with doing max 10% in the captain, whatever it is. I mean, the guy projects well. He's gonna get opportunity, and even if he has a kind of a average to poor game, he still is live to be the highest scoring player on the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's like
well, that's why specifically I captain Antonio Gibson, and he's my other. It's a 4-2 jet stack in my biggest buy-in, and I'm playing him. I'm playing them together. I have no issue. I really cannot tell you how many times me and Rody have talked about this. I don't know the exact numbers, what they are, but how many times have we seen it, especially on Thursdays after Sundays, where you see both running backs in the winning lineup? That doesn't necessarily mean captain. It happens all the time. And Detroit was the team that used to do it every time. When Detroit started being trendy, it was like, and they still are. You get Montgomery and Gibbs already won the million for somebody this week.
And the other thing, by the way, about you mentioned the kickers. I mean, low key, kickers are just like insane right now. I mean, as far as skill goes, nobody ever misses. It doesn't matter the distance.
Yep.
And it's like not even close. It's I think like the scoring system might be broken for kickers because of that 50-yard bonus or whatever it is.
Oh, I know. So many guys are hitting.
There's no difference between that and an extra point for these guys. It's ridiculous. So I think that these kickers are always live, like until further notice.
Especially in a game like this where you don't have like offenses that are going to be going for it 4th and 5, like the Lions, for example.
Yeah, no. I mean, both these teams will take the field goal.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll probably get out of here in a few minutes. TJ's asking any Mike Williams. We went through the Mike Williams that we all love him as a contrarian play. And I do, yeah. And I think Samuel's question is good too. Is that with injuries on both sides, can we expect more from tight ends and run catching backs? That's exactly how I looked at this slate. And Sheets pointed it out too just a minute ago. Like, I really like the idea of getting to some of that. Having 3 or 4 of my guys be tight ends and running backs at least.
All right, so I got to lock my lineups in because I'm thinking. Okay. Because the good thing is, Mr. Sheets is putting that dinner because it's all just coming to me what's going to happen this game, and I don't want.
What you think New England's going to win like 35, 38, 31?
It's going to win 35-30. I don't know who it's going to be, but
okay.
It's just
do it, Sheets. Do it. Yeah, don't even question it. Just go with it.
I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing it. My lineups are in, and
and then we're editing past this.
All right. Good luck, everybody. I'll see you.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Brandon, anything else before we get out of here? I feel like we touched on a lot of different stuff, but maybe I didn't give you enough chances to talk.
No. I mean, like I said, this is a bad slate for me to have any real takes. Normally, I can build stuff or answer things. This is just one that's wild. Like I will say, my 2 favorite plays from the Patriots are Henry and Sly. But I'm probably not going to be on the Stevenson bandwagon today. Like
Okay.
I think from a tournament perspective, for me, that is the place that I don't have ownership to.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm giving up that much by not playing Stevenson, and him at 11-4 in the flex. I mean, that's pretty substantial. I
Yeah.
mean that's him and whatever stupid punt like you have to run with him. I really just don't want to be goofing with that. I would probably like man, Brissett at $9,000 is so tempting, but I'm
Mhm.
just so terrified they just run the ball today.
Mhm.
And like if
But
this was
if they're not able to run though,
yeah,
tough defense to run on.
because
It's tough
my
defense to run on in all fairness too.
because my initial build that I went with, I don't exactly remember the Jets, but it was a 4-jet 2 Patriots, and the 2 Patriots were Brissett and Henry.
Okay.
That was the first build that I was considering, and I kind of walked back on that just because I don't know exactly what Brissett is going to be able to do through the air in this. Like, I don't think he's going to be throwing shotgun passes and stuff. Like, I think it's going to be quick dump offs.
Yeah.
And then I go back to, I think he probably ends up throwing in like the 180 to like 220. I think both quarterbacks actually throw
Yeah.
pretty even amount of yards in this game, which like I typically don't want to chase a quarterback if I don't see him either throwing 2 touchdowns or nearing 300 yards. So him even at $9,000, like I'm really not happy about going that. But that was my initial build that I was going to go with today
Right.
for
Yeah.
for what it's worth.
That is interesting. I'm just way below on the quarterbacks today personally, but we'll see. Yeah. Another question from Samuel just before we get out of here, I'll answer this one really quickly. How many punts are too many in a lineup? I don't know what a punt is considered in this because I just made a case that some of these cheap guys, whether it's Demario Douglas, whether it's Antonio Gibson, I don't see them as really being different than anyone except for literally Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson, or Ramondre Stevenson. I think they're all basically similar. So I don't think you need to do more than 2, but I don't know. Braylon Allen, I think, is also like these are legitimate plays. All these, I sort of agree with that the statement that Conklin would be the lowest owned player that Brandon would go with, and that's I'm pretty similar to that. I have a little bit of Gibson, but that's pretty much it. Gipson, not Antonio Gibson, Xavier.
Yeah, normally, at least for me with football, like a punt would be anywhere like under 3, because typically between 3,000 and 4,000, I almost always have to have one person there and or a kicker. And typically, like ideally, I like to play like an $800 guy in like every one of my single entry lines, which that isn't the case today. I don't think that Rutgers is probably going to get there. So Conklin would probably be the cheapest guy that I would use, but I would only ever use like one punt play in your lineup.
Yep. I sometimes find the need for 2 if it's like an Eagles slate and I want to play like let's say I wanted to play I don't know Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and and when Antonio Brown's healthy. Let's say, and if I wanted to play all of that with Saquon, you're going to have to find 2 punts in that situation, and I'm fine with taking stabs in those situations, but it really depends on the game for me. All right, at some point in the near future, more people will have extrapolated the 24-day to a lot of 10s, these kickers. Yeah, it's true, but I want to remind everybody, kicking is always more of a thing, and defense is always more of a thing in these slates early in the season and at the very end of the season. Once we get into the middle of the season and things are sort of humming, people will figure this stuff out, and we're not going to be seeing kickers putting up 30 fantasy points like every other game anymore.
I talked about it in one of the videos that I did, just really fast based on that. For me, kicker, I mean, going back, but like another way to look at it is like right now, every team is alive right now for playoff contention.
Right.
So like they're going to take the points at this point.
Right.
At the end of the year, when you're competing for like to make the playoffs, you'll start taking the field goals. But yeah, like in the middle of the year, that's when you have more teams going for it on 4th down, being more risky when like it's just, from like weeks, I don't know, like from 6 to like 12 or whatever. Like that's typically when I don't play as many kickers or stuff. But even like this year, I would at least like I'm tempted to run a kicker nearly every week this year alone. But if you're doing like anything more than like one lineup, I think you need kickers the majority of your lineup, at least one. And ideally,
I like that idea.
I would like in this game, like I think Sly's the better kicker because I think New England is going to be hard pressed to score points in this game, and I think they take the 3 from him more so than Zerline. Typically, I want to play the kicker from the losing team or whoever I think is going to lose. But I mean, I'm still like, playing that out of how I want to do those kickers. But that's my take. Like I think a basic build, regardless of what you do captain wise, I usually have 1 punt, 1 kicker, and then like 4 actual good plays. And if I could just nail those 4 good plays there, the kicker doesn't really matter. Most of the time, most kickers are going to score like 7 to 8 points anyway, in nearly any game. So like I'll just take that 7 points from whatever kicking position I have and try and build the rest of the line from there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like that. That's probably the last thing I'm going to do is go and get. I have exposure to the kickers, but I'd like to get a little bit more. So that's my last thing before I get out of here is that I need to add more kickers when I get out of here. All right, man. Hey, great being with you, Brandon. As always, look forward to doing this all this season, and I want to see some winners in the showdown later. So let's hopefully we had some screenshots of either ties or who knows, even the possibility of a solo ship is out there.